Hey everyone, welcome back to Quiet Calm Books. I recently went on a fantastic trip to New Orleans, Louisiana, and today I'll be giving you a bookish tour of the city. Right now, I'm taking you through the French Quarter, which is probably the most well-known part of New Orleans. It houses the famous Bourbon Street, which is always flooded with tourists and nightlife seekers. You can also see some of the gorgeous architecture of the French Quarter, with brightly colored houses, intricate iron railings, and wide balconies. The streets that branch off of Bourbon, though, have some adorably quaint bookshops and small art galleries. New Orleans is definitely a city for the readers and artists, not to mention food addicts. I had some of the most incredible food of my life in New Orleans, including seafood etouffee and beignets, of course. Now we're walking through Jackson Square right in front of the St. Louis Cathedral, and if you listen closely, you might be able to hear its bells chime. I found some of my favorite bookstores right on the side streets near Jackson Square, but we'll get to those later. Next, let's go to the Garden District of New Orleans. The Garden District is famous for its grand houses and mansions, and my hotel was also located right around this area. I traveled from the French Quarter to the Garden District using the New Orleans streetcars, which have open windows and allow you pretty scenic views of the city. The houses in the Garden District have such unique architectural styles that they look like they came right out of a storybook, and some even resembled castles. New Orleans is also known as a city of vampires, and if you're familiar with Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire or any of her Vampire Chronicles books, then you'll know that her characters spend a lot of time in the mansions of the Garden District. The Garden District definitely has more of a suburban feel than the French Quarter, with a lot more greenery and these sprawling trees, which I think are called southern live oaks. I'm not a tree expert, so if anyone lives in the New Orleans area and you know what they're called, let me know. I personally thought they looked like they were covered in feathers or fur. Besides the vampiric mansions, my favorite part of the Garden District was all of the little free libraries. If you don't know, little free libraries are mini libraries shaped like mailboxes or tiny houses. You're allowed to take books for free, but the expectation is that you give one of your own back in return. I've never seen so many little free libraries in one place. I thought the art on this one was particularly gorgeous. These multicolored flowers look so realistic, and this little kind of nighttime bayou scene just makes me feel so peaceful. There was yet another little free library right outside of the New Orleans French Alliance that was decorated with French words. We visited the former location of Marie Laveau's house, located at 1020 St. Anne Street. Marie Laveau is well known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans and practiced voodoo in the 1800s at a time when it was widely feared. A friendly bookseller at Arcadian Books provided me with this handy map that he curated of all the bookshops in New Orleans, and while I wasn't able to visit them all, I did tour quite a few. If you're interested in visiting some of the ones that I missed, you can go ahead and pause the video to study the map more in depth. For our first bookshop stop, we'll return to Jackson Square. This is Faulkner House Books, located at 624 Pirates Alley. It even has a commemorative plaque marking it as the location where author William Faulkner wrote his first book, Soldier's Pay. I love the brick and the baby blue doors of this shop. It makes the entrance so inviting, and the inside is even better. I'm pretty sure Faulkner House Books is what my house would look like if someone gave me limitless funds to spend on books. With the chandeliers, dark wood, and interior arched windows, this bookshop really does look like a grandmother's house that has been converted into the home library of your dreams. The books are positioned in a way that is cluttered and comforting, but still very purposeful, and it's very easy to find what you're looking for. This is also the kind of bookstore where you want to take your time looking. Unlike some of the other busy NYC stores that I visited in my last video, this shop was never very crowded, and the warm lighting puts you into a sort of book trance. I was instantly drawn to the stack of Italo Calvino's books, who, for those of you who don't know, is one of my top 3 favorite authors of all time. His books are so whimsical and entertaining, and I'm on a mission to find, buy, and read every single book this man has ever written. They're very difficult to find in person, and ordering them online feels like cheating. Luckily, this shop had Into the War and Difficult Loves in stock, which I've never seen in a store before, along with Calvino's most popular books like Invisible Cities. I was so excited to see books by local authors and about local topics of interest like Marie Laveau, voodoo, New Orleans hauntings, Mardi Gras, jazz, and general history of New Orleans and Louisiana. The second room of the bookshop feels even homier, with wooden cabinets doubling as bookshelves and lamps that look like they could be in your living room. This New Orleans-style wrought iron gate, which led to another private section of the bookshop, was painted mint green, which I thought was so cute. There was even a comfy little chair and a side table with philosophy books, in case you're looking for a bookstore that doubles as a book buying spot and a quiet, comfortable reading spot in the midst of the busy city. This wooden cabinet boasts the store's collection of William Faulkner books, some of which looked pretty old and were probably original editions. I've never read William Faulkner myself and don't know much about him, but if you're a fan of his, this is definitely the spot to visit. My favorite shelf in the store was full of these poetry editions called Everyman's Library Pocket Poets. The authors' names are listed in gold squares, but they're a bit difficult to read, so I'll read a few off to you. We have Poe, Plath, Milton, Keats, Frost, Eliot, Emerson, Dickinson, Bronte, Blake, and many others. Poetry is not usually my genre of choice, but if there's a classic poet you like, chances are they were included in this collection. I especially liked how each spine had a color and design that fit that author's aesthetic, like these Gothic cross symbols for Poe. I was also interested in these little collections of blues and jazz poems, which are essentially just blues and jazz lyrics converted into poem format. Other English majors and bookish people can probably relate to this, but personally, when I'm listening to a new song that I'm into, I pay close attention to the lyrics and try to analyze them in a way that's relevant to the artist. If you're a fast reader, but you feel like you don't always have time to listen to full albums of music, I feel like this is such a fun way to learn new songs and feel the impact of their lyrics. Back in the main room, I found the shelf full of children's books and fantasy, and I was so happy to see that this bookstore chose some of the most gorgeous editions of children's books, like The Hobbit, Peter Pan, and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Literally every book edition in the store is gorgeous and so well cared for, and it was a delight to look at all of them. Over on this side, we have some William Faulkner literary criticism and just some more books related to Faulkner, as well as a couple nonfiction books on local topics like Louisiana birds. I'm used to seeing plenty of special editions of classic novels, including the Barnes & Noble leather-bound collectible editions and the Penguin cloth-bound classics, and this store had a few of those near the front window, but I had never seen these beautiful editions before. These rainbow editions are called Penguin drop caps, and each one is monogrammed with a different letter of the alphabet. Each lettered book is dedicated to a specific classic author with that last initial. If I had rainbow bookshelves, I would definitely be adding these editions to my collection. They also had a couple of cute vintage-looking journals on the front table. Overall, Faulkner House Books is absolutely beautiful and so well cared for. It's cozy and inviting and has an amazing selection of books for such a small bookstore, especially books on New Orleans-related topics. I definitely recommend it. Our next bookstore, Arcadian Books and Prints, is located right down the street at 714 Orleans Street. It has these adorable faded barn doors, and there are books absolutely covering the window, so that you would definitely be buried in a pile if you opened it. The inside of the shop is quite a sight and left me a bit awestruck. As you can see, there are books piled literally floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Unlike Faulkner House Books, this is what my house would look like if someone gave me limitless funds for books and I never did an unhaul. Walking through the store makes you feel like you're Alice in Wonderland, but instead of giant chess pieces and cards, it's a game of book Jenga. I'll admit that I was a bit nervous to walk around for fear of toppling a pile and burying myself in books, and I couldn't show you many of the book titles because they were way above the reach of my camera. Here I'm trying to show you how I literally had to take baby steps in order to not knock anything over. I was basically shuffling through the store, but it was kind of fun, and I did see a few titles over here that I recognized. Arcadian Books and Prints has been open since 1981, and almost 1/4 of the many books you see in this store are in French. Famous authors like Michael Lewis and Neil Gaiman have also visited this store in the past. This section was my personal favorite, just because of the way this fan was precariously perched underneath this book bridge. There was no way I was going over there, but I thought it was a good potential writing prompt. Only the bravest book seekers are allowed to venture underneath. I did notice that some of the books were in French and other languages, as I mentioned, but it was difficult to see in this narrow space. It's covered in books, but there's a metal chair over in this corner where you can sit and read with books towering over you if you so desire. I think the science fiction and fantasy section was over here, but unfortunately I couldn't get close enough to read any of the titles. I thought these antique maps and flower illustrations were so cute and would fit perfectly in a plant-themed book room or library. Overall, Arcadian Books and Prints was worth visiting for the wow factor, but you might not want to visit if you're claustrophobic. And finally, the last bookstore we visited was Crescent City Books, located at 240 Chartres Street. This store is so open and well lit that you can admire the city's French architecture and even people watch while you bookshop. As the signs say, Crescent City Books is a used bookstore that specializes in out-of-print and rare books, so if you're a collector like me who loves looking for pretty, out-of-print covers, then you'll definitely want to stop by this little shop. My sister and I found this especially old book with pages that are either warped due to age or just made to look cool and multicolored. This store has a unique vibe to it that mixes the bright, lively city with these unbelievably old, leather-bound books and warm wooden shelves. Do you guys prefer used books or brand new books? I definitely like freshly printed books, but I honestly prefer to own whichever edition of the book I initially read, which means I'm always looking for out-of-print editions. I do have a soft spot for books that are so thoughtfully designed though. I feel like pre-owned books have so many stories to tell, especially when you find notes or annotations from the previous owners. There was some more genre fiction over here, including mysteries, thrillers, sci-fi, and fantasy. There's not enough room on the shelves for all the books, so some are spilling over onto the floor. It's still easy to walk around them though, and we know there's no such thing as too many books. I really wish I'd gotten more footage of the sci-fi section. As you all probably know by this point, I'm more familiar with fantasy than sci-fi, but I love retro-looking sci-fi books from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Up above these shelves, you can see some abstract art that really fits New Orleans' artsy atmosphere. As I'm walking through these shelves, you can see just how well lit and comfortable this store is. It's easy to move around in, and there's plenty of room to see all the titles. My favorite shelf was this one right here. I didn't recognize most of the authors, but I loved these gilded pastel books, especially the lilac one. My sister was scoping out all the coolest books at the store, and she found this one with this scaly, textured cover. Like Arcadian Books, Crescent City Books also has some vintage maps, posters, and prints that would fit beautifully in a light academia-themed room. At the very top of these towering shelves, you can just see the edge of an old-fashioned typewriter, which is so cool. I don't own a typewriter, but I have typed on one before, and I feel like with manual keyboards coming back in fashion, it won't be long before everyone owns a typewriter again too. Over here, we have a few more retro-looking sci-fi and fiction covers, as well as some books of local interest. For my final review of Crescent City Books, I'll say that the store itself is comforting and perfectly combines the old and the modern. The books are unique enough that it's definitely worth a visit while you're in the French Quarter. Of course I hauled a few books during my trip, and the first was Difficult Loves by Italo Calvino from Faulkner House Books. Difficult Loves is a short story collection about the ways we interpret and communicate life and love. I just finished this book recently, and one of my favorite short stories was Smog, which explores the repetitive daily routines as well as the more exciting, colorful aspects of living in the city. Calvino is great at writing the nostalgia, longing, and moodiness of urban life, and if you've never read him before, Difficult Loves is written in more manageable chunks than some of his longer, more abstract novels. I wanted to buy at least one book related to New Orleans, so I picked up the Everyman's Library Pocket Poets edition of blues poems from Faulkner House Books. I also desperately wanted a Mardi Gras mask, so I bought this delicate gold and white one, decorated with crisscross lines and swirls of glitter. Now I just have to wait until I get invited to a masquerade party to wear it. As I started flipping through the book of blues poems, I realized that it isn't all direct transcriptions of blues songs. Some of the poems are written by poets who are simply taking inspiration from the blues form and lyrics. I'm hoping this book will help teach me more about blues music by immersing me in its unique poetic structure, and I'm so excited to read it. I also received this free Faulkner House Books bookmark with my book haul, and I feel like I have bookmarks from so many different bookstores now that I have to do a bookmark tour at some point, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Finally, my favorite bookish souvenir from New Orleans was this gorgeous artwork inspired by Alice in Wonderland. There are so many incredible art galleries in New Orleans, but I was really drawn to this glittery, fantastical piece at a gallery called Coco Alley. The artist, Alley, also rescues and rehabilitates wild animals. She creates artwork inspired by these animals, as well as stunning, glittery pieces like this. And with that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching and coming with me on a bookish trip to New Orleans. I'm sure I'll be visiting more bookstores in NYC soon, so if you haven't seen my other video in which I tour 6 NYC bookstores, make sure to watch it at the link above. Please let me know if you guys have any recommendations for bookstores you'd like me to tour or other videos you'd like to see. Finally, if you liked this video but you prefer an even more relaxing version where I don't talk, let me know and I'll upload a version with just the music and the video. My channel is still new, so if you enjoyed this video and want to see more bookstore tours, book hauls, and book reviews, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and have an amazing day!